Tai Diana ir Jurgita įvyko toks nesusipratimas su pranešėjom, jos galvoja, kad biškai vėliau bus laikas, tai viena prisijungs tik tai iš 20 minučių, Severin. Sandra neatsako, bet tikiuosi, kad irgi.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining our seminar on ESPON. We will briefly introduce the program itself, the project, and we will have two presenters who will make their own presentations. I'm now trying to share my screen with you. I have some technical issues.
Tai šios dienos susitikimas yra Lietuvos atsparumo planavimas.
Our today's meeting is focused on the planning of Lithuania's resilience, and we will discuss the CHANEBO and VREPO analysis results based on thematic action plan, which is meant to develop crisis-resilient territories. We will discuss two targeted analyses that ESPON prepared. These will be CHANEBO and VREPO. Analysis, targeted analysis, Lithuania participated as one of the 5 stakeholders in the analysis, and we will discuss the way we can benefit from the analysis result when developing our local policies in Lithuania and in other countries. Later on, we will have Severin Herman joining us. She was involved in the preparation of the VREPO analysis, and she will talk about the vulnerability, resilience, and recovery policies of the physical living environment. The authors of the analysis analyzed Lithuania's and other countries' strategies, and those were the countries that had those strategies or that failed to prepare those strategies, and they analyzed, the authors of the analysis analyzed whatever existed in terms of vulnerability, resilience of the physical living environment. Later on, we will have a Latvian presenter, Sandra Spule, joining us today. Her team worked on a CHANEBO project. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania participated in it. And they discussed the challenges at the external eastern borders of the European Union. And CHANEBO has already been translated. VREPO has not been translated yet, but will be translated and uploaded onto our website. I'm now inviting you all to join us on the Slido platform to voice your questions. You may ask questions to me as the representative of ESPON in Lithuania and also to those who worked on CHANEBO and VREPO. ESPON is the European Spatial Planning Observation Network financed from the EU programs, and its aim is to help local authorities, communities, government institutions to develop guidelines and to make decisions. Let's say if some documents are lacking or data is lacking, ESPON is the program who can help you collect the data, analyze the data, and prepare a document based on that analysis. The slides that I'm showing now have been uploaded onto the website of the Ministry of Environment, and you're most welcome to visit the active links that will lead you to the documents that are being developed or have been developed by a ESPON program, and you will find the information of interest for you there. How can you apply? Twice per year, ESPON program invites all the representatives of the EU member states who are related to the decision-making regarding your living area to apply with our program for targeted analysis, what concerns other projects and programs. And you see that there is a multitude of programs, projects and research available for you. So for the rest of the projects and research, you are welcome to apply all year round. There is no deadline set. And ESPON could help you with them depending on your needs. What concerns the targeted analysis, you have to actually meet several criteria in order for ESPON to consider you as eligible. So you have to be one of the eight targets of the thematic action plan. You also have to have some kind of challenge in terms of territorial planning, and it should be a topical problem for other EU countries too. You will not need to pay for the analysis, for the topical analysis. We will pay for that, but you will get a full document that will meet your needs, and you will be able to use that document for your own needs. The document, the analysis document, and the additional documents, auxiliary documents, will be uploaded onto the ESPON website, and it will be available for the whole of the EU to benefit from. What concerns the financing, if you are applying for the targeted analysis as a single stakeholder, then the sum is a bit smaller, close to 70,000 euros. And based on the cohesion principle, we invite you to apply as a consortium of stakeholders and a consortium of partners. If we have several countries applying together or several partners applying together, then the sum can total 250,000 euros. Now I would like to say a few words about the 8 thematic action plans, in line with which targeted analysis are being developed. So here we are talking about 8 themes that cover territorial planning in the broadest sense of the word. As you can see, territories can focus on various activities. You can focus on the well-being of the people, on the way to improve the well-being. We have climate-neutral territories as one of the topics. Governments of new geographies is a new topic or theme. We can discuss the digital geographical aspects, places resilient to crisis, perspective for all people and places, living, working and traveling across borders. Yet another theme is smart connectivity. and European territories in global interaction, including adaptation to the impact of climate change. Smart connectivity is one of the new themes. We haven't done much in that particular theme, but we are moving forward. Now, what is the timeline? It covers a year and a half up to 2 years in time. It takes that much time to prepare thematic analysis, but it depends on your individual needs. But both VREPO and CHANEBO actually were prepared within a shorter period of time, that is 12 years. So we had to work intensively in order to present the result. All the countries have to submit their proposals. They might first find partners, interinstitutional, international partners, and then apply for a targeted analysis. And if their application meets certain specific ESPON criteria, then you become a full-fledged stakeholder and participate in the preparation of the documents. And step 2 would be the development of technical specifications and technical projects. ESPON drafts specifications that fully meet your needs for the information that you apply for, and we also describe the requirements that need to be met. Step number 3, ESPON launches public procurement on the EU level to select those who will be preparing the targeted analysis and doing it. And only the ones who meet your needs will be selected to work on your project. And you will be involved in the selection. And then we announce the result of the call. We have a big network, ESPON network, covering the whole of the EU. We have been working on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, and all of us are being asked to share the results of the projects with other beneficiaries too. That is why we upload it onto our website. Briefly, about each of the thematic plans. For example, climate-neutral territories. The goal is to collect data about the production of renewable energy, analyze the functions of ecosystems and biological variety. We are also focusing on the assessment of natural resources in European territories and seas. Also, we focus on establishing challenges and opportunities. And at the bottom of the slide, you also see the examples of various ESPON projects. If you visit espon.eu website, you will find projects based on the thematic action plans. And this slide also includes interactive links, and you will be able to access those projects that are being listed there. Governments of new geographies is a new field that we started working on. We have not finalized many projects yet, but for example, DigiSer is a very important project for innovation management and digitalization of public services. We focus mainly on those digitalization aspects of public services, and ESPON is doing its best to present the information, the data, and the analysis in the best possible way. Places resilient to crisis is one of the thematic action plans that covers the 2 reports that will be presented today. TERES is one of the projects which is related to territorial resilience. And here you see that These projects reflect our geopolitical situation, the current trends, and the way they impact us and our territories, the territories where we live in. And it is related to the principles that are followed by our network. Terra Ries is the project at the bottom of the list, and here you see that ESPON has also been involved here. And every time the presiding country sets certain priorities for their presidency period, ESPON prepares political documents, guidelines, depending on the request of the presiding country. And then those documents are being presented in various formats in the European Commission and elsewhere. And every 6 months we have meetings in various EU member states. Usually ESPON seminars take place in the country that is residing in the EU at that time. And we discuss all those documents and analysis results. Perspective for all people and places. It is a very broad topic, which is meant to develop a basis of knowledge and proof on economic and social convergence models, and it covers the well-being of the population in various territories. For example, you might have a situation that you want to solve in a particular territory. You have some kind of territory, for example, cultural heritage territory, and then you can focus on Hermes heritage or Herywell projects. They are the projects that make us happy. They are among the first ones that started focusing on the influence of cultural heritage on our social well-being, on our culture, and on us as people. Hermes has been translated into Lithuanian and has been uploaded onto the Ministry of Environment website, and it will be uploaded onto the ESPON website. Here we are talking about a methodology that allows us to establish the influence of our cultural heritage on our economy. And our goal is to actually calculate the economic input related to that. Herywell is focused on the idea that successful territorial development is not to be considered as the direct expansion and moving of people into certain territories. Quite to the contrary. It has to be interpreted differently. For example, we have aging people who stayed in particular territories. And here we are focusing on making the quality of the environment better. House for All is yet another project which will be translated into Lithuanian as well. This is a very important project which focuses on the analysis on the EU level on the situation with affordable housing in the EU. Living, working and traveling across borders is yet another topic, rather new topic, but it is in line with our times because we have many people traveling across borders to work and to live. Smart connectivity is an interesting theme. ESPON has developed Lordimas, Digiser, Digiplan tools. For example, Lordimas allows us to actually focus on the digital development. We have an interactive tool developed there, and we invite you all to inform us on your good practice in your own territories I have in mind a good practice related to the digital services, public services, and their provision in your territories. So you're most welcome not only to learn from the good practice of others, but also to share your own good practice by using this tool. We also have other tools that you see here, which are also related to digital services and their analysis, and they involve some modern aspects too. European territories in global interaction, yet another new topic, and you're most welcome to get deeper into it too. Adapting to the impact of climate change is very much in line with our times, with our geopolitical situation and various changes that are happening around us, including various crises. They are being analyzed, they are being recorded, and ESPON is helping do that. Today, a bit later on, we will discuss some other issues, meaning projects or targeted analysis, VREPO and CHANEBO. And I see one of the presenters has already joined us. I'm very happy to say that both VREPO and CHANEBO were prepared, targeted analysis were prepared within a period of a year, and Lithuania was one of the stakeholders, in addition to 4 others. And just to emphasize, if you want to participate as a stakeholder, you shouldn't be afraid of being a country of a different size from others. For example, we had Malta, Lithuania participating. We also had one Belgium participating, the Flanders region, and we also had the southern France participating. All those countries, all those territories face different crises. Severin will cover that. And every single country that is participating in that consortium has specific documents prepared for that particular country, recommendations for that particular country, and also we prepare a general document that covers it all. We also collect a lot of additional data that does not end up in the report, targeted analysis report. As a result, we develop an interactive tool that allows for various comparisons of various data. CHANEBO focuses on challenges at the EU's northeast external borders, and Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania participated there. Our Latvian presenter will focus on that. So the countries that were involved, they border countries that are our foes, our enemies, and we analyzed the way those countries bordering our enemies had to change in order to remain attractive for the inhabitants and for tourists. Briefly, I would like to cover some of the sources where you can find our information. Espon.eu is the main website that includes all the key information, what we're all about, what we do. We also have a library of documents that have already been prepared. You can choose depending on the topic that is of relevance for you. It also includes a list of events in various EU countries that are upcoming. We are always willing to share the information about the advantages that we can offer. Once you visit our portal, you will see the screen, and you will see that this portal and this project is extremely important for those who are working with data, who are working with statistics, who are working with comparisons and country assessments. We also have apps, information, screen boards. in case of TERES and VREPO and other targeted analysis, the collected data is integrated into an interactive tool. And here you see an example of TERES. The information encompasses all kinds of indicators, for example, air pollution, number of inhabitants, and others. And it is all the data is sorted by the year, by the country, presented by the year, by the country, and you may see the change going on year in, year out in various territories. We also have stories with various cases analyzed. It is very difficult to cover briefly all the information that is available on this website, on this platform. It is full of tools, it is full of data. You may choose depending on the topic that is of relevance for you and depending on your needs. If you visit the website of the Ministry of Environment, if you go down on the first page, you can choose ESPON link, and you will find all the information in Lithuanian about the ESPON program, about the way to apply for it. We also publicize the documents that are topical for Lithuania. Many of them have already been translated into Lithuanian. CHANEBO is the newest document that will appear on the website in Lithuanian. We didn't have time enough to translate it all, but it will be fully in Lithuanian with time. ESPON also published targeted analysis Hermes, and Rural Plan is a tool that allows us to plan various territories and to improve the quality of living there. We also have sustainable urbanization and land use practice tool, and VREPO is also in Lithuanian. It will appear in Lithuanian soon. ESPON has a lot of tools, and we have a platform where we also announce all the upcoming events. You are most welcome to follow the agenda of the events because they are covering the whole territory of the EU. They are really relevant and topical. And there is also an opportunity for you to network with other institutions depending on the relevant topics in your daily work. ESPON is also creating brief messages, video messages on what it is doing. There are a lot of videos on YouTube on ESPON, on various seminars and conferences. We have half-yearly seminars that are taking place in various countries that are presiding in the EU, and brief videos, short videos about that are also uploaded there. So if you want to find partners in other countries and other institutions and can't do that on your own, you're most welcome to contact us and we will help you do that. You can also visit our profile and you will find all the relevant information there, because it is in a way meant for you to find partners, and Facebook is also there for you. And my last slide focuses on 4 interactive tools. One of them is LordMess, which is meant on local and regional digitalization. Town City, it focuses on towns and cities and their situation. TERES is a comparative tool. I already mentioned that. And Desire focuses on the analysis of public services in regions and specific territories that are lagging behind. ESPON program helps create various policy documents based on the EU needs, on the European Commission's needs, and we are the ones developing insights into the future, especially now. That would be it on my side. Once again, I would like to remind you to make use of the QR code to access the Slido platform and to submit your questions to me and to the future presenters. And now I would like to invite Severin to join us. Severin, do you hear us?
Yes, I cannot hear you somehow.
Okay, you should hear me now.
Okay, now I hear you. Yes, now I hear you.
I didn't select the right headphone, so it's fine. Good morning. Maybe I share my screen, Sandra, or do you want to?
Yeah, yes, you can share your screen. Sorry, I didn't introduce you. Maybe you can introduce better yourself.
Okay.
So I'll stop sharing.
Okay, yes. I will share the screen and I will introduce myself in the meantime. So my name is Séverine Herman. I'm an urban planner and I work for Sweco, an engineering company that is based in Belgium, but also all around Europe, mainly in the North country. And we have been participating last year on this project of ESPON about vulnerability, resilience, and recovery policy of the physical living environment. But I like to have the full screen. I don't know. Do you see my screen now? It's okay. Sandra? Yeah.
Yes, now I see the full screen, yes.
Okay, perfect. So VREPO stands for Vulnerability, Resilience and Recovery Policies of the Physical Living Environments. That was a year study, 12 months plus 3 months of administrative closure. We just concluded. We concluded the 3rd of September exactly with Final Steering Committee in Marseille. And it was a study supporting by multi-stakeholders and governance. So the study had a double aim. It was targeted analysis, with the first aim was the scientific evidence, evidence-based resilience assessment, ground policy and scientific evidence of regional vulnerabilities, but also compare regions with similarities, dissimilarity, using indicator and analysis. Helps identify weakness aspect and set some priorities per region in order to lead to place-based approaches tailored to each territories. We focus on vulnerability in the physical living environment, like for instance the calamities. And the second aim of this targeted analysis was to develop policy resilience strategies, so go beyond the evidence and design strategy for adaptation, mitigation, transformation, but also address territorial content, governance, and instruments. Draw knowledge from science. We had a whole part of literature review, but also peer learning, academic insight, international frameworks. And also the strategy that we developed during the VREPO study should fit within the disaster management cycle, so the DMC cycle, before and after the calamities. The final goal was to build a more resilient living environment in both pre- and post-crisis phases. So the study is, as Sandra mentioned, and as I mentioned also, is territory focused, is centered on stakeholders region. So it conducted territorial analysis and it looked at governance practices and policy instruments. The VREPO study also focuses on limited set of vulnerability in the physical living environment and measure each region degree of resilience. This study enables cross-learning. That was the idea, that we had knowledge sharing between the 5 territories, like each region can learn from the other region, but we also collect some good practices all over Europe. And we provide a methodological framework and indicator. We assess the current strategy and instruments for crisis management in the different territories. And finally, we formulate recommendations for more resilient regional policies. So the 5 territories, there was already one challenges because we had to study a diversity of territory. We have one country, Lithuania, one municipality, the municipality of Enschede, the Belgium region, Flanders, the large French region in the south region, Sud Provence-Côte d'Azur, and an island, Malta, with a focus on its southern regional councils. So, to address these differences, we really needed to develop a strong and consistent approach and an active engagement of stakeholders and a solid conceptual framework. That was really the key aspect of this study. So this combination enabled us to overcome the disparities and identify several shared challenges across all 5 contexts, which I will present in the next slide, but focusing on Lithuania for this event. Just quickly to how did we organize and how we managed to work in this diversity of territory. In the consortium, SWECO covered Belgium, Netherlands, and the south of France. We had a Lithuanian partner, Bauland, and a Maltese partner with EcoStack Innovation. So we were able to communicate in local languages. That was really important for us. Also during the focus group or the workshop. And so we didn't have any problem of communication at this for this study. The study is in English, but it will be translated as Sandra said. So very quickly, like this, we are all on the same page. How we did approach this study? We had 4 main tasks that's overlap. The task 1 is focused on developing the framework and reviewing the literature alongside creating a stakeholders engagement plan. The task 2 run in parallel and involved assessing data availability, collecting data, and defining relevant indicators. The third task was about focusing on policy and scrutinizing existing strategy and assessing their effectiveness. And finally, we synthesize all our research and stakeholders' input to provide some policy recommendation. As said, the stakeholders engagement was key part of our approach. Engaging local, regional, and national actors allowed us to gather diverse perspectives, validate our finding, and ensure the relevance of our analysis. I have to say that the stakeholders of Lithuania was particularly engaged in the study and helped us in our research and the results, the quality of the results as well. Similarly for the other stakeholders, but it was very, very nice to work in this study with such great stakeholders engagement. Yeah, remember, if you have any question on the approach and the general aim of the project, please scan the QR code. So as I said in the introduction, it was really important to develop a proper conceptual framework and a methodology for a common language and priorities, and looking at the diversity of the territory. So we define resilience as the ability of social, ecological, technological system, so the SET system, to anticipate, absorb, recover from, and adapt to hazards while maintaining or improving the essential function. And we define the risk as the combination of the probability of an event and its negative consequences. So our analysis focused on understanding the interaction between the SET, social, ecological, technological system, and the risk, the HEV, hazard exposure vulnerability, which allowed us to assess how systems respond to risk across the different territory. So we had the first exercises with the stakeholders of the 5 territory, which aim to identify the main risk of this territory, also the hazards, and we ended up with 3 main risks common to the 5 territory, which are climate, geopolitical, and public health risk. And 13 hazards. There is 9 hazards for the climate risk, 2 hazards for the geopolitical risk, and 2 hazards for the public health. So we focused on the VREPO study on this risk, this hazard, and the exposure on communities and urban area, natural and agricultural environment, critical infrastructure and strategic locations, and the vulnerability on social and governance, economy and infrastructure and technology. By integrating the principle of the SET, social, ecological, technological framework, our approach established an explicit linkage between the hazard and the vulnerability and exposure, and the capacity of region to act across the 4 stages of the disaster management cycle, the DMC, which are mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So we analyze the resilience policy of each territory according to the 4 stages of the DMC cycle. During this project, we developed a large database to develop a territorial resilience data set, which we organize following our conceptual framework. So we organize it by risk. We identify the main hazards, the exposure, the vulnerability, and the impact with some key metrics, and the resilience, the policy that are linked to these key metrics, which form the indicator. We organize them according to our SET system, the social, environmental, and technological aspects. So that's an illustration how the data structure work in our conceptual linked to our conceptual framework. We have an extensive database during this project that we hope ESPON will be able to make available interactively, because it's very interesting. Because our idea wasn't to provide fixed indicators, but allow each municipality, governance, stakeholders in general to play with these indicators and create their own map or according to their own need. But here have some examples of data that we produced and maps during this project. So for instance, here you have the map of fluvial flood risk in Lithuania. Well, clearly there is not a big issue for fluvial flood risk in Lithuania, because there is 84% of the country that is on the no risk zone, 9.5% on low risk, and the medium risk 4%, high risk 2.5%. But even though it's important that the policy also focus on the high risk zone, although relatively small, but it should be prioritized for monitoring emergency preparedness and targeted flood protection intervention, for instance. That was for the first risk of climate risk. The second risk, as we said, is geopolitical risk. So here it's clear that for Lithuania, the proximity to Belarus and Russia present a significant geopolitical risk. That's what we show on this map. And also we show the density of population, and the proximity of this population to this border. So you have here a graph on the bottom left of the map that presents the distance from Russia, Belarus in kilometer, and the population. So that's an overlap on different indicators over there. And the last risk that we studied during this VREPO project was the public health risk. Here, for instance, we produce a map, but we have, as I said, much more data beyond this than just these 3 maps, but we produced this map on public health risk to show the distance of population from the nuclear power plant, which is located in Belarus, and that's you see it within the 50 kilometer, 100 and more than 100 kilometer. So all this data analysis allow us to draw conclusion. And in the end, the output of the project, we propose to the different stakeholders 1 poster per region, similar to this one, where you can see the 3 risks, the main hazards, with an infographic representing the impact on the vulnerability, and the key strategy analyzed and their performance or the implication in the different DMC cycle. We produce also during this project regional reports. Here you have the screenshot of the regional report for Lithuania and a communalities report. So in total 6 reports for this project. Let's draw conclusion. I propose that I drive you through this poster, because the poster I meant to as a fire starter for discussion between the different organizations and different bodies of ministry. So as I said, it's very summary of the study for this poster. If you want really true insight of the project, you have to go through the report, but at least looking at the poster, you can see here the 3 risks and identify what is the main risk for your region. So for sure in Lithuania, according to the ranking exercise that we did with the stakeholders, geopolitical risk has been ranked as first. For instance, in Flanders, it's climate risk that is ranked at first. In Flanders, they have a lot of issue in terms of flooding. In Malta also climate risk, so that's differ according to the territories. You can see in the second part of the poster the hazards. So in Lithuania, in terms of climate risk, the flood and the nature fires are the main hazards that we identified. And geopolitical risk, the hazard of terrorism and cyber attack, the armed conflict. As we just said, you find back again, but in more infographic way, this distance of population from Russia and Belarus in kilometer. You also see, even though we say that there is a little part of the country that was under fluvial flood risk, even though there is 33% of population exposed to fluvial flood risk. So we think that it's also important to look at the resilient policy for this aspect. And then you see the proximity of the population to the nuclear center in a more graphic way than previously presented. But you understand at least the risk in terms of public health risk if there is an accident in this nuclear central. And the last part, the bottom part of the poster, are the analysis on the key strategies. So we analyze more than 300 documents in total for the 5 territory, and we scale down to 93, and you can see as a conclusion of our analysis for Lithuania, for instance, that in terms of geopolitical risk, we found during our study a lot of policy in preparedness and recovery phase of the DMC cycle, but almost no policy for the mitigation and the recovery phase. Similarly for the health risk, so a lot of policy on preparedness and response and less on mitigation and recovery phase. However, that's changed for the climatic risk, where we have a lot on mitigation and preparedness and less on response and recovery. This pattern is similar in the 5 countries. Usually we have less policy on mitigation and recovery phase for the geopolitical and the public health risk. So that's a similar pattern. From this analysis and the understanding of the territory and the resilience policy that was inside the document, the policy documentation, we were able to draw a recommendation. And of course, it's a 12-month study, so the idea was to make this recommendation as place-based as possible with the help of the stakeholders. So we organized this recommendation in a table. There is 3 tables per risk, because there is a table on climate risk and social dimension, table on climate risk and ecological dimension, and for the technological dimension, and similarly for the geopolitical risk and the health impact risk. And we organizing through the TMC stage cycle. So for each part of the TMC cycle, if we go, for instance, for this first recommendation linked to climate risk and social dimension, we see that on the mitigation, but we saw previously that we find a lot on mitigation. So, but you have the what did we find, the how the country or the territory approach it, and the key actors that they are involved in, and the one that should be involved in the future. So in mitigation, as I said, climate risk, the Lithuanian is well covered, but it's become more interesting when we go, for instance, for the recovery phase, and we can really draw also some interesting conclusion that I will present in the following slide. So I will not go in detail into this recommendation table, but we try to make them as place-based as possible, as useful as possible for the policymakers and the different ministry. But of course, they need an extra layer of attention by the local authorities later on. So as I said, we did the same for geopolitical risk. So 3 total for this for the set. We, for the public health risk as well, we organize in the same way. And what I can say today, the key policy takeaway, we have 5 points. So build systemic resilience, integrate climate, geopolitical and public health risk across infrastructure, communities and ecosystem. Foster cross-sectorial collaboration. Public and private actors must coordinate on infrastructure protection, social equity, monitoring and dual-use facilities. Adopt strategic no-regret measure. Implement crisis-proof policies, cross-dimensional solution, and institutionalize partnership following the Building Back Better logic. For instance, leverage European best practices, adapt lessons from the 5 territories that we analyze, Belgium, Malta, and Enschede. But as I said, we also have a part of good practices. So the knowledge sharing is very important. And embed resilience in governance, transnational law, spatial planning, and cross-border cooperation to safeguard Lithuanian against current and future shocks. So the general conclusion of the VREPO study, we are now, and we all understand it, in a poly-crisis, so we don't have to treat the crisis separately. The ecological crisis is linked to the climate crisis and so on, the environmental, but also the geopolitical. So we are in the world of poly-crisis. And we advise for a systemic approach. So a systemic approach that has a strong analytical evidence with data management, comparable indicators, map, and cross-regional insights. Well-informed decision-making, a solid base for prioritization and actions. A multi-stakeholders engagement framework, multidisciplinarity, about the co-creation model, a common analytical resilience framework, as we propose, for instance, in the VREPO project, that we all speak the same language, because having different stakeholders around the table often is difficult to understand each other's. So it's important that we have a common analytical resilience framework, and we hope that the framework that we develop in VREPO can help for these engagements between the multi-stakeholders. And also a systemic approach, creative and complementary territorial strategy with innovative place-based approach across all the DMC stage, the disaster management cycle, a place-based policy and systemic synergy, a coherent resilience strategy, and go beyond the risk management transformative recovery. And I will end with the key takeaway from this study, with an innovative forward-looking approach focused on mitigation and preparedness, limited recovery-oriented measure, and there is a gap in building by better approach. That's our general conclusion for the 5 territories that we analyzed. It's in general, also, as we just mentioned in the systemic approach recommendation, it's important to have a well-informed and transparent decision-making. There is some difficulty in these 5 territories with the interagency coordination, participatory planning, and transparent decision-making. For this, a data-driven support anticipatory approach allows policymakers to act before the crisis escalates. I also mentioned, and I will say it again, but an integrated framework to collective interest in diverse measures. Resilience cannot be achieved through fragmented or soiled policies. Integrated resilience framework are required to align environmental, social security, and infrastructural objectives. And finally, the implementation. So keep in mind that resilience is not only about what to do, but also about when and where to start. I will leave it here with this main takeaway from our study that you can find in our community report. And I would like to thank you once again for listening me and for inviting me to present the result of the VREPO study. I'm open to discussion now. If you have some question, please address it through Slido. Thank you very much.
Yes, so thank you, Severin, very much for this interesting presentation. Initially, I thought maybe we would have a Q&A at the end, but I'm thinking maybe it's better if we would ask you some questions now before we go to Sandra Spule. So, since we are having this presentation for Lithuanian audience, of course, we would like to know more about Lithuanian issue. So how could you see the position of Lithuania's preparedness among other countries? Do you think we are how do we stand stronger, strong enough, or still lots of things to be done?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra, for your question. Of course, my experience in Lithuania is very limited to this study. So, but according to what we analyzed, and also the experience that you shared with us, because we had some exchange with the other territory, knowledge sharing was a big part of this study. We can clearly see that Lithuania, in terms of geopolitical risk, is very well prepared and aware of this geopolitical risk, that I think, for instance, in Flanders, they are not so well aware. I mean, they are aware, but not as prepared as Lithuania. So that's your main risk that you identified. You are really, for now, at least on the 5 territories that we analyzed, the most prepared country, of course, and it's due also to the localization of your country.
Great, thank you. And one more question. So, because I had the honor to participate in through all the process and to see how this TA was starting, all participating in the meetings. And I remember the last meeting in Marseille, we were discussing that maybe it would be possible to have this interactive tool with all the data that you have collected, which is very interesting addition to the initial project. Do you plan on doing this? Can we somehow benefit from it? What do you think? Do you have this in mind?
Yeah. We had this in mind when we construct our database for this project. That was the idea and also what we presented during the final steering committee was this interactive tool using the AI. That's even the people that they don't know GIS, they were able to interpret the data, and that's what we wanted to create in this project. That's very user-friendly data management. Unfortunately, the VREPO project is not meant for this, so we stop here. But we gave all the information to ESPON, and we are willing to participate in the development of this interactive tool. But ESPON has also inside a very interesting data scientist, and they are also looking at how they develop this interactive tool. So I hope that it will be possible for us at SOECO and the consortium. We stop here our study, but we gave all the information to...
So I can assure you that I will take charge of this, and we'll make sure that, because I was very impressed while participating in the meeting and seeing all the data collected, and especially that every common person would be able to so-called play with this and find the beneficial results for themselves. So we will stop speaking with ESPON to create something like a common tool. Yes, so should I give you one more question or not? Because one last question I really liked a lot, and people who saw the final documentation that you prepared, for those concrete recommendations for different strategies that are still needed to be created. And what I liked a lot about your approach, that at the very end of the third line of the table, you propose which institution should take care of those strategies to be prepared. And my question would be, have you any idea what institution should be the most busy with this? Did you come up with the idea? No.
Yeah, that's a difficult question, Sandra. Also because I'm not specialized in Lithuania, so I think what we did during this study, it was to give all the important information to each stakeholders, and of course now it's to each stakeholders to look at this recommendation and to make sure that we have the right person around the table, because as we said, it's maybe not one institution that is more important than the other, but what is important is to have the right person to discuss resilience policy all around the table, because during the study, it was clear that there is an institution that they are working in silos and they are not talking to each other, which leads to a lack of a resilience policy in certain aspects.
Yes.
So that's the main message that I will pass. It's really find a common language, and that's the purpose also of the poster, that you can maybe trigger the attention of the other governance or institution and ask them to join the debate or the discussion.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the job that you've done, especially on the Lithuanian side, because, like you say, all the information was collected, filtered, and presented the essence, and now we have to continue with this work by ourselves. So thank you so much, Severin, for now. We'll see if we'll have Q&A at the end, but great. So thank you, all the participants, for the patience. And Sandra, maybe we can invite you to join in and to present another project or targeted analysis that Lithuania was also part of the stakeholders circle. So Sandra is European Union policy advisor, and maybe you can extend more on what you actually do, because you were the main leader of this CHANEBO project, and I didn't participate at all, unfortunately. So maybe you can expand on this. Thank you.
Labas rytas visiem. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes. So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Sandra, very much for inviting me to elaborate a bit and inform people on great things that ESPON does. And thank you, Severin. It was also very interesting to hear what is being done also in other projects, because even if we work with ESPON projects, we are too often very much focused on what we do, and it's not so often that we hear what other projects do, and it's also not so often that people outside of ESPON bubble know what ESPON does, and I'd like to therefore a bit explain of what we did, so it will give you a picture. But just a brief introduction of myself. So yes, I have been working with regional development issues in the Baltic region, and also later from Central Europe for now almost 30 years, mainly with cross-border cooperation programs and other relevant issues. So my expertise relates to designing the programs, from designing to evaluating them, but specifically with a focus on the regions that are either slightly lagging behind or regions that are on the borderlines. And my first encounter with ESPON was in 2020 with a project where we explored possible business opportunities at the borders. And at that time, it was the region of Latgale in Latvia. It was Utenas or Ezeru Zeme districts from Lithuania and Romanian regions bordering with Moldova. So back in 2020, if you remember, it was kind of a first crisis of this century, the COVID crisis, and but still business opportunities were considered more or less as promising, even though in 2020 August 2020 it was already this contested elections of Belarusian president. And any opportunities already started to look a bit shaky. So now, after the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine in February 2020, another study was commissioned, and let me share my screen. So I was in charge of both the study in 2020. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we see. Yes.
You see my screen with the presentation, right?
Yes, with presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Good, because maybe
it doesn't go through all the screen, just we see with small icons.
And now
it's correct, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, yeah, because I don't see what's happening. So okay, yeah. So, but let me just also briefly tell for those who don't know. I'm sorry, Sandra, didn't hear your introduction. But basically, how it works at ESPON, that there is an issue lying with certain stakeholders, mainly public governance institutions at various levels, and they seek solutions. They seek ways of how addressing the issue. And what ESPON offers is a solid research to obtain data, to obtain evidence for the further policy decisions. And here the issue was recognized by 4 regions: South Karelia in Finland, Ida-Viru in Estonia, that's a region where Narva is, which has an exact border with Russia over the bridge, Latgale in East Latvia, and the area in Lithuania where 4 local authorities which belonged to 2, not 3 regions. So together, they prepared an application to ESPON asking for support to examine what impacts has the Russian war of aggression made on these territories. And their proposal was successful. So ESPON went out tendering and commissioned and through tender commissioned this research to the company to a consortium which it was led by a company, Spatial Foresight, in Luxembourg, where I was working for 7 years before I returned to Latvia already since 2023. And our consortium consisted also of University of East Finland, a small evaluation company from Finland, Nordeval, and a slightly bigger company, Safej Baltia, which is a daughter company of a bigger French consulting and engineering company, Safej. So together for more than a year, and working also together with the stakeholders, because this was also the method, we were exploring how the situation has changed. And you can read about our project in the dedicated website. You can see the link to the website there. And one thing that I want to mention, because we deep dive quite strongly into the data, and one of our tasks was also to compare the regions, which meant that for Lithuania we had to opt for one, not 3 regions, so that we can compare it with the rest of the 4 regions from other countries. And we chose to focus on Utena because, as you will also see from my presentation, and as you also of course know, Vilnius region situation is a bit outstanding. It's a bit particular, and therefore maybe, I mean, of course it would be great to see how good is Vilnius doing, but it would probably put Utena in a shadow. So what did we arrive to in our conclusions? Sort of to start with a brief summary. So of course the regions that we were analyzing in detail, they have quite similar issues, but these issues are also very different in their core, in where do they come from. So for example, South Karelia, and actually you can also say that looking from north to south, the severity of the problems is really decreasing a bit. And it is maybe a bit opposite to what Severin said earlier, because these are different risks. We were more concentrating on socioeconomic outcomes of the closed borders, of the sanctions and everything. And you can see that South Karelia, which built for many years their businesses on Russian raw material, on Russian tourists, they actually were hit the most by this Russian war of aggression and the closed border, because Finland closed the border almost completely. So no more tourists, who generated 1 million euros a day, approximately for probably not exactly only South Karelia, but also nearby regions, because they had tax-free shops, they had spas, they had tourism, everything. So Narva and Ida-Virumaa, of course, also is hit quite hard, but they are hit not only by the closure of the border, but because also in the framework of Just Transition initiative, they are closing their traditional oil shale industry completely and transitioning to green economies, and therefore the shock is kind of a double shock to some extent, but at the same time they have a kind of a cushion of 360 million Just Transition funds for just this small region, with which they are doing great things to restructure their economy. Latgale region, of course, as you probably know, is traditionally very backward lagging region in Latvia. It was hit also by closed borders, but let's say not probably so really hard, because this was already maybe the third wave that Latvia experienced with problems with trade with Russia, and only those businesses were still doing business with Russia who really kind of believed and also were ready to take these risks. But of course, also the transit, the layoffs of railway employees. This is what Daugavpils, for example, experiences very much. So what we saw in Utena was kind of a bit the least severe if compared situation. But of course, the underlying problems of depopulation, of people aging, of larger than average unemployment, poor transportation, these are similar things which all of these four regions actually struggle on their daily basis. And now, with these new challenges, of course, this just adds to the costs, to the needs for investments on the top of what was needed already, let's say, before 2022. So just to outline what data we collected and how we present it, of course, this is maybe not something that you don't know on the one hand, but on the other hand, what we wanted to see, what has been the dynamics, so how things have changed. If we took year 2014 and we looked at last year's where information now was statistics available, so what has changed and what is the dynamics of the change? And even though that we only particularly look deep in our four stakeholder regions, the stakeholders also wanted to see where they stand also with the rest of the regions at the border. And so we made quite many statistics on what these changes are. And here you see one change. So most of the regions starting from Finnmark in Norway down to Elbaski, to Siedlecki in Poland, etc. A lot of them have seen this depopulation. So this is just a common trend. Only very few regions have seen some more people arriving to the regions, and this problem already is long standing. And when it comes to economy, we thought it would be also interesting to see how things are changing there since 2014. And here you can see the change that has been relative to the average EU average and relative also to the national average. And as you can see, with a few exceptions, and of course, County of Vilnius is exceptional, as I said, with a few exceptions, the regions at the borderline certainly are more behind the average of their own countries, of course, also of EU average. So while we were doing all of this, of course, first of all, we wanted to see what common specific new policy needs have emerged along the border. So in addition to the population, in addition to being more backward. So now we see, of course, this high attention from security point of view. In certain areas, there is also heightened social tensions, less observed maybe in regions of Lithuania. However, speaking to stakeholders, to municipalities that I mentioned, they also noted that, for example, the region being relatively highly industrialized now sees quite a big influx of migrant workers from third countries that find difficulties to integrate them in the societies. Not so much for Lithuanian regions, more for Estonia, Latvia, and Finland is this disruption of east-west transport corridors. And I will not go through all of this, but what I want just to highlight here is that actually just war has exacerbated the problems that were before. And all the stakeholders, we were talking to people in Finland, living in the borders region areas that I mentioned, in Ida-Virumaa, in Latgale. They all think that there is a negative image about these regions increasing. So if the regions were already seen not particularly probably attractive from the point of view of doing business there, now this adds up, and they simply want this also be taken very seriously. And now we are also seeing more and more also the security vulnerabilities. And I also must say that we did this a year ago, and we see that let's say ESPON as such, and these researches which take quite a considerable time, they lag now a bit behind how situation actually evolves. And as we also know, let's say the situation with these smuggling cigarette balloons that now disrupt also life in Vilnius and Vilnius. So situation. What we found out a year ago now is even more accentuated, more increasing. One thing why these regions actually asked ESPON for evidence was because they were left without very significant means of support that they had before. And this is this cross-border cooperation programs that I'm sure you also were enjoying. We are still enjoying the regions between Latvia, Lithuania, or Lithuania, Poland, but there was a considerable part of programs with Russia, with Belarus, and a lot of partnerships. Here you can see also the partnerships and which regions had the most. Let's say good news for Lithuania, there was not such a great dependence on these projects, like for example in Lapland or in other regions of Lithuania, of Finland. But anyhow, of course, getting closed the programs causes also lack of funding. It causes also now disrupted networks that you had, and this is very difficult to reorientate so quickly. We counted, and here you can see we counted that that these regions benefited of almost 200 million euros from these cross-border programs with Russia and Belarus in the previous programming period, and approximately same amount was foreseen also in this programming period. And here you can see that Vilnius was actually also in money terms, in absolute money terms, Vilnius County was quite a leader on attracting ENI, what we call these neighborhood programs, and now there's no funds of this. Here you can see, and if you need at some point for some argumentation, you can see also how important this has been in money terms, in terms of share between the what we call internal cross-border programs like Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and also this external with Belarus that they were. And here we can see, of course, that Finland and Estonia, Estonian regions are the biggest kind of losers in that sense. And why this program was important was that. In contrast to these internal border programs, external border programs had very generous infrastructure, so a hard infrastructure investment options. Here you can see that even up to 90%, some of the programs invested in infrastructure, which was mainly tourism, also security, all these things that usually, all these sometimes small things that central governments are not always keen to support at the border, but it's very important for the local communities. Sandra, may I ask you how much time do I still have? Because I'm conscious of time, but I don't see it on my PC screen. So,
actually, you still have some time because our meeting is about to finish at 12, so you are free to.
Okay.
It's very interesting to listen to you.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I go ahead because I wanted to speak 20 minutes because I have slides for more than 20 minutes, but now I'm just a bit jumping over. So anyhow, I just invite also people to read the slides, because this is really very concise summary of what we did, because our work resulted in some 12 deliverables of more than 600 pages, and I believe this is not an easy read, but I will also show you at the very end the story maps that we prepared that might be something that is more visually kind of appealing and more easy to read and see. So here just a quick snapshot on how we compared our 4 regions, also in more detail on demography, for example, on this old age dependency ratio, and here you can see that let's say our region in Lithuanian focus actually is having this median age at the highest peak, 50.4. Also, this is highest in comparison to the other regions. We have more statistics on this, and this one is in the document which is called comparative analysis. Then we also have documents for each of the regions with their specifics, and from what I know, it is being translated into Lithuanian as well. Sandra, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my colleagues also told me, and also from ESPON.
Yes, we have already translated.
It is already translated. Okay, very good. Very good.
All this information is on our website already.
Okay, great news. Yes, there you can also see how let's say the whole border rim looks in terms of where people live and where they can get in 45 minutes by car. And certainly there is this blue area in the north where there's a very sparsely populated, and the more you go to south direction, the more people density there is, and actually what we were also very much discussing and talking to people in the regions, that it would be very important now when the east-west corridors are disrupted, are closed for quite long, most likely time, to more actively develop the corridor from north to south along the borderline, because these regions have so much in common that they would also need to share on how they solve them, because we saw also a lot of interesting solutions being done in Finland, in Estonia, etc., which are certainly of interest. And formerly, let's say, for Lithuanian regions to, for example, to cooperate with Finnish regions, they needed to go to bigger programs like South Baltic program or Central Baltic program, which deal with more sophisticated, more, let's say, more advanced problematics, which is not so topical for the border regions. Here you can see how the border regions are in general also dealing with investments, with value added per per employee. And here we can say that from what I see, Utena region is actually, especially if you compare to Latgale, is doing much better. But I presume that Vilnius region would stand here out much more. Yes, I'm not going to read through this, but again, to emphasize this connectivity and social security aspects, there is so much in common, which could make a good ground for further cooperation programs. As I said, we are now advocating for programs from Norway to down to Poland, so that the border regions could talk to each other and see what solutions are being done in one or another case. Also, for example, with disinformation, where also a lot of stakeholders mentioned that this media literacy is an important point. And we saw, for example, that Finnish governments, local governments are having programs, having education, adult education programs, and these are things which not necessarily need to be Latvia-Lithuania border program issues. This can be as well Lithuania border with Finnish border, something common to work on. Same thing on Russian-speaking communities. Not so maybe topical in Lithuania, but for example in Finland it's becoming very topical, and because there is not good knowledge of Russian language among Finnish people, they really experience these difficulties, where they could learn then again something from us, how we deal with this, how we integrate, how we offer local language courses, etc. I'm just quickly running through what is called ESPON policy questions. So when ESPON gives this tender, when these terms of reference, they formulate a few questions that they want to be answered, and one of the questions was how to develop new growth pattern. And here we were proposing, as I already said, now to shift our thinking from east-west to north-south, and see what cooperation can there be deepened, what economic integration can there be deepened, and what ecosystems need to be built there. Also, to focus on what things can be done in terms of strategic autonomy of Europe, strategic economy of our countries, so that we are not dependent on critical elements being produced only outside of EU, which in critical moments can turn out against us. There is also one interesting aspect which is very much taken up by other regions, these special economic zones. Latgale is a special economic zone already for a very long term, and I'm always saying, because now I'm also working with a World Bank project where we also analyze special economic zone in Latgale and compare it to other world. So we have a lot of knowledge accrued on if any country wants to make a special economic zone, we could kind of give an outline on what works or what not works, at least in the context of Latgale. And now Finland, for example, is very much contemplating on special economic zones. I don't know about Lithuania so much. So this is one new potential new growth direction. Also about culture, we had the question, and mobility. Please read if you find it interesting. I will not go here in details because I have a few more topical things probably to say. also on EU funds and how to use the EU structural funds in the current and moreover in the next programming period, on how to program them so that the border region issues are taken seriously into account, securing these regions, making them more resilient. So our recommendation part has several recommendations from this analysis. And we were also asked to prepare medium and long-term visions of these regions. So for this, we had a session in Ignalina this spring in April, where we discussed with stakeholders on how the region. They were also from Svečiūnai, from Utena people, on how do they see the regions in 10 years, in 20 years. And of course, all of us, we want to see our regions at the border thriving. We want to see people being there, because people and their groundedness in these regions is very important for security, for resilience of these regions. So, and we were a bit fantasizing on three scenarios. Just as a teaser, please read if you wish. One was, are the regions just a green buffer zone? And what happens when it's just a buffer zone? One is when EU showcasing goes on, a bit like a situation where you just put everything in these regions to show the other side of the border, EU values and EU outcomes. So being in EU gives you all the needs needed for development. It is a bit like a picture that I saw very recently about Narva, where there is a river between Ivangorod in Russia and Narva. And Narva, and this is a castle on both sides, and Narva side is with lights and everything now in the winter time, and in Ivangorod is totally bleak and dark. So this is showcasing that with EU and EU values, certainly life is more, I wouldn't say better, but it gives you more opportunities, certainly. And you also see the progress in your GDP and in most people also wallets. And the least appreciated scenario was about Russian appeasement, which is a bit like Finlandization, if you know this term. So how to do everything just to please Russia. And this is with an assumption that the border will be opened in some near future, which I personally don't believe in. Okay, we had a number of policy recommendations, both for the future cross-border cooperation programs, or what is called European territorial cooperation programs. We even fantasized about one common project for all 27 border regions at NUTS 3 level, because they have so much in common. So if there is a Baltic Sea region program, why there cannot be a program at the EU external border? This is something that still needs to be heavily advocated and lobbied, if possible, at all levels. And we also had some suggestions for and proposals for immediate mainstream structural funds, both by regions at country level and also for all regions together. 100% co-financing is something that is being already discussed in the corridors of European Commission for the border regions, and specifically earmarked funds for the regions, targeted place-based investments, including also dual-use infrastructure, etc. And I'm running here quickly over these horizontal recommendations, which you can read. And then by topics, one is on security, themes that are needed to be supported. One is on sustainability, on economic resilience and growth, and then is also about social aspects and inclusiveness. And one thing which is also particular now, also for, if you would ask me, for Lithuania, but it is also Latgale problem, less in Finland and less in Estonia, is an issue where the workplaces that these regions have are totally not appealing to young people. So there is a necessity to create more qualified jobs, and then we also suggest some ways on how to do and how to think of this also through cooperation over the borders, which I am quite certain can be done. So last but not least, what we arrived to speaking to people is that more positive, actually not only like propaganda positive, but reality-based positive narratives should be spread about the regions, because it's too often that we hear only negativities. That is one thing, and the people in these regions actually don't feel so bad about being in the region, rather than being perceived so negatively, as especially in Estonia, very especially in Latgale. So this is one thing, and another thing, what they said, it would be good to have a common platform of information exchange, because we get more news on what is going in Rome, what is going in Vatican. We get live stream from how Pope is being elected, but we don't know what is being done across the border. Let's say what Daugavpils does, for example, for their civil defense and protection plans, what people around Narva do to make their communities more resilient. If people would know more what is being done in these regions having the same problems, this would also help them to think of potential solutions. And here I actually stop and say thank you again to Sandra for this opportunity to spread the word about ESPON, because I think ESPON is sitting usually on a very much of evidence, on very much of data, not always so easy to access. I must admit, this is quite a bit of something which is they are being quite a lot. I don't know if criticized is the right word, but also for me sometimes to find something is not easy. And if you may, I will just quickly show. Where you can find a bit more information in these story maps. So we made 4 story maps, and these are also in our website. So you can easily, with changing maps, see. I'm running here quickly through, so you basically saw more or less you saw. Do you still see my screen, Sandra?
Yes, I see your screen, and I will have some questions related. Yes.
Okay, good, because I don't have any reference. So please visit. We have like some 4 of these story maps. If this is a quick read, it's more than my presentation, but it's certainly less and more focused than we have it in our. Now I need to see you somehow. I lost you. Yeah. So here I stop. Please go ahead with the questions. I'll try to find you back on my screen. I need to stop sharing the screen as well somehow. Okay, Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Sandra, for your very explicit and interesting presentation. Really, it was very interesting to listen to it, to watch the slides. I will have questions to you and to Severin regarding the slides. Is it possible to maybe have them and upload on our webpage next to the event? Because what I like to do, I always, if I have some ESPON some project, I always upload as much info as I can, but like filtered. And the one map that you just showed now, I already uploaded on our website as well, but only I didn't see it myself, the possibility to go like that, to slide, good to know. And also because, as I said, that we have already translated CHANEBO documents, but since there are lots of images, they are still in English, but maybe I can take them from your website and work with them better. Yes, so very interesting presentation. And Severin, if we also can upload your presentation, would be great. Maybe you have questions to each other as well, Severin and Sandra. But just to jump in, I wanted to ask Sandra shortly regarding Lithuania. Again, how does it stand across all those regions that you have been investigating? You said that at some point Vilnius or Lithuania had some better preparation in some matters, but overall, can you shortly answer this?
Yes, overall, if compared to the 4 regions that were stakeholders of CHANEBO, let's say Lithuanian regions had the least impact of this disrupted the corridors a year ago from business point of view. So now, from what we see, and here I don't maybe Severin can tell, there's much more risks. Out of risks of hazards, which now also are quite visible. So, but Lithuania, and of course, what also matters is how far is the region from the capital area, and this kind of also implies how things play out. And certainly, speaking to people in Ignalina, in Utena, in Visaginas, they feel, let's say, a bit periphery, but it's different if you are 100 kilometers from where things happen from if you are more than 200 from where things happen. And Sandra, if you allow me, there was one thing that I wanted to say, which I kind of a bit forgot, but I wish to say. So. As again, please use this evidence, and please think of ESPON, all the stakeholders, please think of ESPON if you need some more evidence, especially in preparation for the EU presidency that Lithuania will hold in the first half of 2027. ESPON has means, actually, from what I know, ESPON even has sometimes hardships in just distributing all these means, especially when it gets to the end of the programming period. So please think of what can make your messages stronger during the presidency. And one thing what I can say is that all the regions along this border that I showed you, they are now also organized, quite well organized, with Interreg Europe policy planning platform, and they are ready to support and to back up and to work further, so that their issues are not forgotten at the EU level, so that the Eastern Border Region Pact, which we hope to hear beginning of next year, is not only words, but also has real means for these regions. And I think this has to be heavily kind of maintained on the agenda. And I think ESPON can help with all these visuals, with maps, with evidence. Yes, thank you. I hope I responded to your question, but I hope it's always good to hear that you are doing better in that sense, in relative terms.
I think what you're doing better is marketing ESPON better than me, because you explained very well as well as Severin, the process of all the steps, and maybe even more involvement that you had, and how it works and everything, because I'm with ESPON only like for the past few years or so, and you have been for a longer time. But so definitely we spoke already with ESPON regarding the priorities of our upcoming presidency and so forth. We'll work with them for sure. And I liked a lot something that you said that regarding those regions, that people living there themselves, they don't feel that bad or that threatened as we think most of the time, which is a bit comforting to know. And also the stress for the partnerships, and especially with the further regions like Norway, for instance, because we have with the closer neighbors, but maybe we should think out of box sometimes too. And as I read the documents of the translations of CHANEBO already, I saw another interesting thing. I think you didn't mention, or maybe I didn't hear, about visions and scenarios for the regions, and just how you speak very directly. So there also is like it's not only pink visions that you write there. It's also like realistic ones, So I think it will be interesting read for people.
One thing I will also direct you to, I will put story maps also in my presentation and send you once again. So it's, yes, you can use it, the presentation as you wish and you need. And I will put you also a link to one summary paper about the visions, which might be interesting for the readers as well.
So, Severin, would you like to give some questions to Sandra or Sandra to Severin before we end the session? Because I think we have some questions on Slido, but I already asked you, and you very explicitly explained many of the things. What do you think? I think it's both of the projects are related to the resilience, and for our region it's very important. We appreciate your work a lot.
No, I was eager when Sandra. Of course, we know it, but it's more related to ESPON than the project. But when you said that indeed the data, the information that you collected during your project, now it's updated because it's not anymore the situation that we are living. So I'm just wondering how ESPON can always do you think it would be interesting to remake the analysis again of your project with the actual situation, or how can we continue the project, because indeed all what we collect, and it's the same for VREPO, the risk, they are changing, so it's moving. And the program ESPON try to follow this with always launching new calls on new problematic and policy issues, but how to build on what we already studied and continue this. That's.
What I would say briefly is that, first of all, I don't think that the statistics would be very much changed, and I think we took almost the most recent that it's still possible. I mean, it's only a year old, and during 1 year you wouldn't see so much change in statistics. What I would rather see is, of course, the sentiment of people. What I think was important in this process was talking to people, talking to stakeholders, but I would also like to encourage the every country to continue this dialogue also with stakeholders, and not only with local authorities, which are the primary agents kind of public governance in these regions, but also to NGOs and to businesses, because this is how you get this topicality from the first hands before statistics come into play after 2-3 years. So if this is anyhow possible to make kind of a dialogues, permanent dialogues, I'm sure there are mechanisms which are in place. Especially, I know about Finland. They really are. Have this participatory approach very much, and I think this is also something that can be learned, and this is also why I'm saying that we came. A big part of our CHANEBO crowd came to a decision that a program, a dedicated program where all these border regions could exchange with their topicalities would be very beneficial, very much beneficial. So first of all, they see that they are not alone. They're not left alone. And there are very interesting solutions that we hear what one region did, what other region did, and this makes these regions think, yes, okay, if they could do this, why couldn't we do this? Also at the ground level, not waiting for big national or EU interventions.
Yeah, we advocate also for knowledge sharing and look at the good practices and exchanges between the different regions. We also believe that. But
yes,
you are right that it's true that ESPON give the ground for discussion and the analysis, and then after it's for each territory to continue the work basically. So that's maybe some takeaway of this event for Sandra also as a ministry.
Exactly.
Yes,
Don't underestimate the potential and strength of the local communities, of these local action groups in rural areas, etc. They are the ones which actually make this resilience in the regions, not let's say only elected government, but people who do things, who are grounded there.
I strongly agree with you on that, and I always advocate that. I know from experience also that those active communities, very often they lack real documentations or legislations to support their work or to support their fight for their rights and whatever. And here comes ESPON. It can really help to create something that you can use later on to defend your rights, to fight for your well-being or whatever. So I always encourage even to participate and for the local communities and to benefit from the analysis done on their behalf as well. So plenty of good ideas, ladies. Thank you so much for your help, for your work. We appreciate a lot. And I can assure that as a ministry and as a municipalities, we will be inspired to work further. We will take it from here and we'll expand to more even detailed results. So let's keep in touch, and thank you very much for your presentations. And I hope to be able to meet again and to work on some projects. Who knows?
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, also on my part. And I totally agree that now we need to work and to empower these rights to stay for the communities to be, because this is in all our interests, that there are strong communities in the border regions. And I would be more than happy if there is any other occasion to spread the word about this. So I'm happy to come over also to Lithuania and one day again.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for organizing this event.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.